a live stream, Afro Empowerment Center. We have organized a live stream today, a panel discussion with 3 participants that I will introduce to you guys in a minute. Personally, I am Samuel Bertolsen. I'm the chairperson in Afro Empowerment Center, and I'll be the moderator in today's panel discussion. In 2015, AEC released a PAD survey report on a previous survey Afro Empowerment Center has done. Among the findings in that report, it showed that 92% of the people asked in the report had experienced Afrophobia at least once a year. 62.7% of the people asked felt that they had been victims of Afrophobia. A lot has happened since 2015. Some would say that the public today is more aware of racism and discrimination. In November 2019, the European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights came out with their report on being Black in Europe. This report was based on a survey of people of African descent. Based on the results of this EU report and the length of time since our last survey, we feel the time is right for a second AEC survey, focusing on what it's like in Denmark. So today's topic of this panel discussion is going to be about data collection, its part in the fight against anti-Black racism, the state's responsibilities internationally regarding data collection, and the different topics in AEC's upcoming survey, such as demographics, education, parenthood, healthcare, and others. So now I will get to introduce you all. First, I will start off with Michael McEachrane. Excuse me for if I don't pronounce the last name correctly. He, among other things, is a co-founder of the European Network for People of African Descent, and is based in Sweden. If you can say hi.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Samuel. Good to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Thanks for being here. Second, we have Dr. Aminkeng from Finland. If you can please say hi.
Hello, it's nice to be here. Just Amin would be good, okay?
Dr. Amin, okay.
Let's leave all the doctor things aside.
Amin, no problem. And last but not least, we have Nicole, representative from Afro-Danish Collective and also a Black-owned business owner. If you can say hi, please.
Hey guys, and thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to talk about this topic today. It's a very important topic, so I'm looking forward to it.
Glad to have you all. So first off, we will kick off with a couple of questions for each of the panelists. Have a small talk about the answers and kick it off from there, and then we will take some questions, hopefully from the viewers, and then we will go to some more specific or more general specific questions regarding the upcoming survey AEC is launching soon. So first of all, let me find the right document with the right questions or with the questions. So first of all, I would like to ask you all the question, why is data necessary in the fight against racism? Anyone wish to start? Nicole, feel free.
Hey guys, so why is it important to have data in order to fight or combat anti-Black racism? Well, from my perspective, I'm a marketing person, and what we do in marketing is we collect data all the time, and we collect data as a way to improve the marketing efforts that we put out, and we collect data as a way to, you know, get a sense of what is actually reality. So in that sense, collecting data in order to combat anti-Black racism is with the same goals in mind. It's to get a sense of like reality. It's to get a sense of what structural issues that we have. And in that way, we can implement or suggest structural changes or structural solutions to them. So to me, like, data is gold, data is oil. And if we don't have the data, it's going to be hard to implement the necessary things for us to, you know, solve our issues in general. So very short, yeah.
Amin, you want to add to that?
Yeah, just to add what Nicole just mentioned, I think we live in a very interesting world, and science is actually taking over the world. And with science, very often what happens is that people always ask you to, people always say, show me the numbers. When you talk the talk, you need to show me the numbers. And as a researcher, very often when we talk about people's experience, when we conduct research in academia, and we say, we use, for example, a specific data group, and we say this group of people, or maybe 20 people we've interviewed, think about racism from this perspective. People always say, but it's just 20 people. It's not representative of everyone. In that case, or in such situations, people at policy, people who work with policy, people at different government institutions, what they need very often to help them make informed decisions is data. They need you to represent or to show them what the numbers are saying, because based on that, they can use that data, the numbers, to justify their actions. And also, these numbers can also be used to hold them responsible for their inaction. So data is very important.
Yes, I definitely agree with both Nicole and Amin regarding this, and I think Afro Empowerment Center agrees with this too. Yes, data is indeed the critical evidence or indicators, as they are called, also are indeed critical as a way of also for the policy makers and the state, the government, to recognize the problem and see it for what it is. And in that regard, I don't think is enough for researchers only to do these sorts of studies, but this sort of data should be officially collected by the state, and then that will increase the possibilities for or they increase the likelihood, rather, that the state will take responsibility for these sorts of data and these sorts of findings and be willing to address them. So yes, critical indeed.
Okay. Well, yeah, like Michael said, we at AEC completely agree in what all of you three mentioned about how important the data collection is and why it's necessary. So we all agree on that. The second question we have is, what is the state's responsibilities in regards to data collection when fighting racism? Michael, if you want to kick off with that one.
Yeah, so the state do have some responsibilities. You know, the UN Committee on Elimination of Racial Discrimination keeps calling on states to collect this sort of disaggregated data on the basis of race and ethnicity and other grounds, and also agree that this is critical. that the state monitor discrimination in this way, and in order to know what the problem is like, the extent of it, and what to address and how to address it, but also follow up on the success of various measures taken. So SUD does think that states have an obligation or responsibility rather to collect this sort of data. The European Agency for Fundamental Rights are also calling on states to collect this sort of data, and have, and also have said that it is perfectly legal to collect this sort of data, because that is a quite common objection, is that, look, is not legal to collect this sort of data. It goes against our laws and so forth. And the European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights disagrees with this. It is perfectly in accordance with European Union law. Yes, so, there are these important international bodies that are supposed to monitor issues of racial discrimination at the European Union and internationally at the UN level, that both think that Denmark and other states should collect this sort of data. And that collecting this sort of data is a way of implementing also conventions such as the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, ISOR.
Do you have anything to add?
I'll let Nicole go first. Nicole, just go first, please.
I actually like the fact, Michael, that you said this, the fact that it is allowed to collect data like this, because every time, especially at least my personal experience, when I'm in a working group and when I'm doing different projects and initiatives that has to do with us, that people or organizations tell me that it's not allowed to collect data when it comes to ethnicity, which is absolutely not true. I even have one in my network who found the specific papers from the EU department that has been writing about how to collect the data, and it literally says black on white how to do it. So it's very, I mean, it's kind of funny and at the same time very sad that they argue otherwise. And when it comes to, the Danish government specifically having a responsibility, yeah, they do have a responsibility, but I also think it's very important to talk about how data can be misused or manipulated to show a specific narrative, which is why I also want to highlight the fact that it's very important that when the data is collected, that we make sure that it's not biased, that it's not, favoring a certain kind of narrative they want to push out. I think it's important that Black people are a part of that process as well, to make sure that it's as objective as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. Sam, before I know that I know I should have let you give me the floor, but it's very interesting to hear what Nicole is saying and what Michael is saying. And from a Finnish perspective, I think the case is similar to our northern countries. A lot of states, EU member states, are not interested. It's not that they're limited by law. No, they're not interested because they do not know how to collect this data. One, they don't have the interest. Two, they're not investing in knowing how to collect the data. Because if it's something that interests the states, they'll do it. But because it's something that the states are not interested in it, they don't put the time into invest in it. And very often they would say that we can't talk about race. So there is no race. So how can we collect data on race if we can't talk about race? And then I say, but that means that what are we doing? What am I doing? I'm talking about race and racism. That's my research. So do you mean that what I'm doing is illegal if you can't do it at the state level? because you fund projects that deal with these issues, but you cannot do it at the state level. So where is the line? So who's not telling you the truth? So there's something, there was always a gray area. And this gray area, it's something that it's actually the state can hide the state racism or racist policies within this gray area.
Thank you. Nicole, this question is targeted mostly towards you, since you are based in Denmark. Why is Denmark so hesitant to collect the data? You crossed the point a little bit.
I did, yeah.
I think before.
I did. This is my belief. Denmark is hesitant to do it because they don't want to show what's up. Straight up, just as Amin just said that, EU member states, they are not investing in it. They're not interested in looking into it. Okay, why are they not interested in looking into it? It's because they don't want to show the reality, like the matter of facts here. To me, like it's a way of, censoring or hiding what's really going on. So everything looks, pretty on the outside, but really is a total different picture on the inside. And that's why Denmark is hesitant to collect the data, because they know that as soon as they collect the data, we actually have something to base our demands from. We actually have a right to claim them. We are keeping them accountable. We are pushing through with some concrete suggestions based on the statistics or the results. And that's why they're not doing it, because they know that it would actually, they'll be kept accountable for not following up on their shit. So.
Yeah, just to add to that, personally, I completely agree with what Nicole just said. There's I see a general ideology from EU member states that if we don't speak about it, if we don't have the numbers about it, then it doesn't exist, and then everyone is happy-go-lucky. And whenever someone tries to speak up about inequalities or mistreatment regarding to human rights, then the easy answer for them is, yeah, show me the data, as Amin mentioned before, show me the data. And then the people or the groups are left behind with hands in the air saying, you don't want to collect the data, but when we complain, you want the data. So I completely agree with that. We crossed the topic about how some countries how some European states have the idea that collecting that type of data is against laws. How do we change that conception? How do we make other organizations in Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Germany, how do we make them aware that it is actually possible and legally to collect this kind of data? I can see I'm having some technical problems right now. Hold on.
Is it because Michael didn't mute himself, or maybe? No, because it doesn't. Yeah, it happens with me too. The echo.
What are the difficulties?
For some reason, I got a message saying that the Zoom meeting is supposed to end in 10 minutes.
Oh, but yeah, that is probably because there's a 40-minute limit if you don't have a subscription.
Yes, but we should have a pro subscription.
Okay.
But while you're doing that, Michael can answer the question while you're checking that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I think one way of addressing this is simply to address it. You know, ask exactly why they think that this is against the law, and then to show that it is not, and how it is not, and why it is not, and so forth. You know, produce fact sheets and so forth on the issue. Maybe even ask, you know, try to get a report written on the issue, if not by a state agency, maybe by a civil society organization, or something like this. That would be one way of doing it. Also, when these sorts of objections about legality is raised, it usually concerns such, you know, a particular form of data collection that has to do with collecting data on individual persons and somehow keeping that data connected to individual persons. Of course, you know, one can do these sorts of data collection or do data collection on issues of discrimination as faced by people of African descent without, you know, linking it to individuals. So, for instance, one could do what is a method called situation testing, where one can have people, you know, actors, say, apply for one and the same job. They have equivalent CVs, but different names. And if they are called to an interview, they, you know, show up, you know, as a Black person or as a white Dane. And, but, you know, they dress the same way and speak similar ways and so on. They just look differently and they have different names. And so this sort of method and applying that systematically is called situation testing. And so that is an alternative way of collecting data on these sorts of issues, discrimination in the employment sector, for instance, that need not, you know, that would then completely circumvent these sorts of arguments that is not legal and so on. So we should also be mindful and aware of the variety of methods of collecting data that can be useful for anti-discrimination purposes. But even, you know, the data, the sort of data that you are now collecting with your survey, that sort of data can be collected in a perfectly legal manner by being anonymous and voluntary and based on self-identification. There are no legal issues with that. And those that make the argument that it is, you can, you know, push them on this and show that as a matter of fact, you're wrong, you know? And so that can be one way. So if you don't have a fact sheet, you might want to put together a fact sheet on this.
If you're referring to the different GDPR, European GDPR rules, that is something we are aware of and are covering actually as we speak. I've been trying to fix the technical problem. It still says that it's going to end in 4.5 minutes. If it does, I will start a new one instantly and send you the invite, and hopefully we can continue. It should not do it, but we'll see. But if we move on, what can we use the data for? We've crossed the topic a couple of times. Like Nicole mentioned in the beginning, data can be used both negatively and positively, depending on how you choose to present the data. but what are the positive aspects for when we're talking about anti-Black racism in Europe in general? What are the positive aspects of having the numbers and having the data? What can we actually use it for? Anyone want to kick off? Nicole, please feel free.
I think we already touched upon it a little bit, but like the overall positive outcome of having data is that data makes it real, first and foremost. And without the data, it's not real. That's at least how I see it from a Danish perspective. So as soon as we get the data, it makes it real, meaning that finally we can, first off, not have these taste panel discussions about racism and what people think about certain things, because now we actually have the data that proves what is right or wrong, what is up and down. With the data, we can do tons of things. Like we can push for, like, let's say we have data for specific areas, like social aspect, employment, housing, healthcare, everything. Like it makes everything possible. Like we can have, we can start actually sitting down and have some, tangible discussion about, okay, we have these issues, how are we going to solve them? Like suddenly everything becomes more tangible. We can actually suggest things that, how can you say it? Things that are more easy to campaign for, easy to implement. We can suggest structural changes. We can do citizen proposals like the CERT 34 thing that you guys are doing, ratify CERT 34. Like we can do so many things just by having the data. So the overall takeaway is that with the data, everything becomes real. It's not assumptions. It's not a taste panel discussion about whether you like the N-word or not, or whether you, what kind of intentions did you have using that word and so forth. Like everything becomes real with data.
Yeah, just to follow up on what Nicole just said, I think we should be a little bit mindful, because our experience of racism is real, are real, with or without data. Our experiences, data cannot replace our experiences. How I feel, what the kind of racism that we feel is real. And data is just going to be another relevant added supplement. There are already existing research which is out there for governments to use. For example, the FRA report, research that was done, which actually showed that Finland is one of the most racist countries in the world. What did Finland do? What has happened? So there are lots of these different research that is out there, but governments and institutions are not really taking it seriously. So we are